Good morning, Pastor Connor here. It is 7:30 on November 17th. Thanks for taking time to be with me today and join me for continuing our conversation we started last week on justice. It's a really important conversation. I'm excited to continue that for today and then wrap that up tomorrow and move on to other topics. But I appreciate the opportunity to interact with many of you over this topic, and hopefully this has provided some food for thought and for prayer. So, like I mentioned last Thursday and Friday, we started this conversation on justice, and today I want to share a few different ways that you can be involved in bringing justice. And remember, to do justice, we first have to understand what God has called good, and to understand what is righteous, how God has designed His creation to work. And to understand that, we need to turn to Genesis, where God time and time again tells us what is good, where He basically says, this is righteous. This is what a flourishing creation looks like. So when we talk about being involved in bringing justice, we're aiming to stop those acting against what God has called good, and we're acting for and with those who are aiming to restore the good, who are aiming for the righteous, okay, or the righteousness. Okay, so I'm going to share just a few different justice-focused organizations today, and you can check these out online for more information. I'm going to drop this in the comment line very quickly, and you can find those organizations will be listed there with their websites, and I would encourage you to take time to check those out when we are done today. So again, I'm going to share just 4 organizations today that focus on working for justice. And I would love to hear if you have organizations that you have supported that really understand a biblical definition of justice. I'd love to hear from you. That's because not just I, but Christians care about justice. We want to be able to share the ways that we can bring justice. So our first group for today is a group called International Justice Mission, or IJM. International Justice Mission. As the name indicates, this is an international group focused on justice. My family has been supporting this group for years. They do great work. They have wonderful resources online where you can learn more about them. And their mission, it's pretty straightforward. End slavery. That's their mission. And you think, end slavery? Yeah, because slavery still exists today in many forms. In fact, according to very reasonable estimates, there are still over 40 million people worldwide who are enslaved. 40 million slaves in our world still today. This evil is still with us. An International Justice Mission is aiming to end it by rescuing and restoring victims, by bringing criminals to justice, and by strengthening the local justice systems where the slaves are being held, okay, or forced into forced labor or other activities that they have to do against their will, all right? And we have the opportunity, even I would say the biblical mandate, to help, not necessarily this particular group, but to be a voice for justice in a variety of capacities. So like I said, we can't obviously support every single group. That's impossible. You get mailings all the time or phone calls all the time for very noble and worthy groups asking for your support. And you know that you have to say no more than you can say yes. That's true for all of us. So when I share these groups, I'm not saying you need to support all of them. You can't. It's just more than what you can do. But we all need to be involved, I would say, in some way with some efforts to promote justice. And one of these 4 groups would be a great place to start, but there are many, many others. Okay, now I'm going to share 2 local organizations that focus on justice, and then actually a third in just a minute. The first is called the Set Me Free Project out of Omaha, and the second will be the Siouxland Coalition Against Human Trafficking out of Sioux City. And both of them, like International Justice Mission, are working to end slavery and human trafficking, specifically here in Iowa and Nebraska. And yes, it happens here in Iowa and Nebraska. We don't like to think that way because some of us live with this idea that we're just a wonderful Christian state or states and everybody just knows everybody and nothing bad happens. That's a very naive perspective. And it blinds us to the need to advocate for justice because there are people, next door neighbors even, who are suffering great injustice and being trafficked in very real and painful ways. And we need to be attentive to this so we can bring an end to it. Okay, so like I mentioned, this is happening in our neck of the woods. People are being bought and sold and bought over and over again. And this is injustice. It is evil. And Christians should stand against it. And let me echo what these groups are finding. Most of this starts online and through social media. Okay, it starts. So we have this idea that this happens like, where someone's kind of a snatch and grab sort of thing. And that can happen. It's exceedingly rare. But where it happens the vast majority of the time is when these traffickers target people, especially the vulnerable and the naive, and children who are not supervised by parents, who are participating in social media chats and so forth with people they don't know. They are targeted and groomed and victimized. This happens, and we need to stand against this. So like I've said before, the internet is a great thing for many people and many purposes. I mean, this is one of them. We're able to do what we're doing right now because the internet. That's a good thing. But it's also a portal through which predators prey on children and the vulnerable. And that's evil. And that demands justice. And we should stand against this evil. So part of justice work will be protecting our children online. That's actually a part of justice. And the Set Me Free Project, in particular, does a great job of this. And we've had them to Zion on a couple different occasions to speak specifically on this subject, to educate parents and help protect our children and others from this evil. So if you're not a member of Zion and if you're within the Omaha area, this is a great organization to check out. They come and do presentations. They do great work on this. I would highly encourage you to check them out as an opportunity to speak in your neck of the woods. They come to schools, they come to churches, they come to organizations. Well worth your time on their social media education piece. So I encourage you to consider that. Okay, one more organization I want to share today that focuses on justice in many respects. That's Lutheran Family Service. And they do great work here in Iowa and a little bit beyond, advocating for the unborn and for children, insisting that the unborn are not disposable when we don't want them, and children have a right to their father and mother. And they shouldn't be told by law that they have to deny that right in the name of adult desires, specifically same-sex marriage. Now I know this is not politically correct, but this is a matter of justice for children. Every child deserves a birthday. Every child. And denying a child his or her day of birth is injustice. Every child has a mother and a father. And yes, I know we live in a fallen world, and I know that sometimes that mother or father is not in the picture for a variety of reasons, but that's not what I'm talking about right now. We're saying that any law that requires a child to deny his right to his father or his mother in the name of adult desires, that is an unjust law, and we should stand against it. And how is it, again, that we can say this? Because God calls marriage between a man and a woman good. God blesses marriage with the potential to procreate, and he calls this good. So any law that opposes what God has called good is an unjust law, and we should stand against it no matter how politically incorrect it is. Because we believe that what God has called good is not only good in and of itself, but it is actually good for us. It is good for human flourishing. In other words, what God calls good is righteous, and our goal always needs to be to aim for that good, to aim for that righteousness. Okay, aim for the righteous. That's justice. So I encourage you to check out these organizations, and I encourage you to get involved in the work for justice. And I encourage you to consider supporting one of these organizations, or if you have another organization that you appreciate supporting that has a biblical understanding of justice, that you would support these with your above and beyond gifts. And I can define what that means later if you'd like, but those are above and beyond giving. So above and beyond your tithe to your local congregation, these are the opportunities we have to support the work for justice. I welcome your questions, comments. If you have questions about any of these groups, certainly welcome to check them out online. But if you want to know more about them, these are groups that I have interacted with in a variety of capacities over the years. They're excellent groups. They do great work. And I highly encourage you to give it some thought and to look into them, because I think you'll find that very meaningful to be involved in the work for justice. And it's something we need to be involved in as Christians who care about justice. Okay, let's take a moment to pause to pray. Lord of justice, our world is wearied with injustice and evil. The vulnerable are exploited. They are treated like property, bought and sold, sold and bought over and over. This is evil. What you have called good is disparaged and ignored, trampled over and abused. This is evil. Empower your church to stand against evil and to stand for justice and righteousness. And teach us to define these words in line with what you have called good, so that you might receive glory and that we might enjoy the good you desire for us. Strengthen the organizations we have mentioned today: International Justice Mission, the Set Me Free Project, the Siouxland Coalition Against Human Trafficking, and Lutheran Family Service, and the many, many others who advocate for a biblical understanding of justice. And move us to get involved through our above and beyond gifts, our prayers, and our time. We give you all glory and praise in the name of Jesus, the Lord of justice. Amen. Thanks again for taking time to be with me this morning. We will be back tomorrow morning at 7:30 to continue our conversation. Look forward to seeing you then. Thanks.